Good morning. As you're all aware, our country is mourning the tragic murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and the innumerable other innocent Black individuals who lost their lives far too soon due to unconscionable bigotry. Police brutality against Black people, hate crimes, and systemic racism have remained appalling and undeniable sources of shame in our nation's history. They must be eradicated in order to create a better and more just future. Now, we non-Black Exonians have a responsibility to both speak out and take action against racial discrimination, using our privilege to make significant and lasting impact. It is not sufficient to just sympathize from a safely detached distance. We must unequivocally commit to doing everything within our power to support the Black members of our community who are most deeply affected by these atrocities. We can volunteer with organizations dedicated to attaining racial and social justice, reach out to help individuals in need, donate if feasible, and always continue to listen and learn. Please join me in observing 60 seconds of silence to honor the lives of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, as well as the countless other victims of the egregious racial injustice which plagues our nation. While this moment of silence accords the victims the respect that they deserve, we need to take the action. The following remarks were written a month ago and pre-recorded in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here on this special day. As I welcome you to the graduation exercises of the class of 2020, I must first deeply thank the extraordinary graduation committee. They're the reason we can celebrate this occasion together, even as we're dispersed throughout the world. I also extend our limitless gratitude to Principal Rawson, the deans, and the administration. Over the last few months, their tireless efforts have ensured our safety and well-being without letting this virus stop our growth as a unified community. Thank you to each and every parent watching for allowing us to attend such a wonderful school. Today, more than any other, I hope you see just how much the class of 2020 has grown, individually and together. And finally, for being the primary reason we've arrived at this day strong, sane, and smarter than we were when we first stepped foot on campus, we have the incomparable Exeter faculty to thank. We will miss you more than you know. My friend Sam once told me that he could chart the depth of his connection to Exeter by the number of times a week he called home. During our first term on campus, we were so eager to fill in our parents, our friends, our guardians back home on every new adventure we had, calling them several times a day. When we needed their advice on what to wear to our first class, we called home. When we realized we didn't know how to write an email to a teacher, we called home. As those days became weeks and then months, though, the span of time between each phone call increased. We figured out how to carry our line cards without a lanyard, realized the trays and D-Hall are there just for decoration, and remembered to always wave to cars when crossing Front Street. We adapted and adjusted and grew, relying more than ever before on ourselves and on each other. So much so that by the time the trees bloomed in front of Seoul, Spikeball on the quad and Stillwell's runs, along with more papers and math hand-ins than we could count, were keeping us too busy and fully focused on the present to answer fussy texts from parents making sure we were still alive. Now 4 years older and eons wiser than those former selves, we face challenges different from any we've encountered or could have anticipated. We find ourselves up against a world on fire, a world lit by not only this global pandemic, but racial injustice, widening socioeconomic disparities, a healthcare system pushed to the brink, climate change, and countless other domestic and international dilemmas. This is where our Exeter education reveals just how invaluable it is and will always be. We've spent up to 4 years in an academic and social community unlike any other, one in which daring discourse, relentless rigor, selfless collaboration, and a profound affection for our community drove our studies and day-to-day life. Every experience we've had, even and especially the most daunting ones, has taught us exactly what we were meant to know. We've acquired knowledge not just about the subjects we learned and extracurricular activities we joined, but how to derive strength and inspiration from one another. Remember what it felt like walking into the first day of that AP STEM class you weren't sure you could pass? Trying out for that intimidating new club or main stage production you never thought you'd get into? What about blasting music in the bathroom while you and your dorm mate showered at 3 a.m? Those memories will remain with us always, and no amount of uncertainty about the future can rob us of those small yet sneakily significant moments we've enjoyed over these transformative years. Even though we cannot be together in person for this memorable moment, the graduation ceremony matters far less than the milestones it honors. The life-altering friendships have already been made. The facts and theories have already been absorbed. And the love we will always share for one another and our beloved school has already been etched in our hearts. Every uniquely individual and common unifying experience has prepared us to not simply defend ourselves against whatever life throws our way, but to positively change the new communities of which we will now become a part. So as our generation is called upon to respond to multiple global challenges, I know that the class of 2020 will be on the front lines. A trialed world is one of endless opportunity, and we get to decide what to do with this one. We could not be better prepared. I used to think that being an Exonian was about being physically present at Exeter. After all, most of our memories at PEA consist of going to dinner at Elm on Sunday nights and shouting hello to friends across the quad no matter how late we are to our next class or meeting. But now that we've experienced our final term off campus and seen what we can do together from afar, I realize that being an Exonian has nothing to do with where we happen to be residing at the time. It's who we are, the values we cherish, the choices we make. When we entered quarantine, we started calling each other. When we miss each other, when we encounter hurdles, when something exciting happens, our instinct has been to share those moments with one another. We are no less Exonians than we were during our previous terms on campus. Everything we learned there traveled home with us. And we've used it. We've used it to raise thousands of dollars to support members of our own community, share beautiful writing, art, and culinary masterpieces, and start new known CIBI initiatives in our respective neighborhoods. Exeter will always live within us. In the years to come, we may find ourselves living in various dorm rooms, apartments, or back in our childhood bedrooms. But Exeter will always be our home. Throughout our lives, we'll still call our families, the ones we were born into and the ones we've created. But from now on, not all of those calls will be to our parents, relatives, or childhood friends, because checking in on family now includes reaching out to one another. When we take on issues as great as the ones we're facing now, we will be calling on each other for help in solving them. We've each played a vital part in weaving a web that will now allow us to forge ahead in separate directions without ever severing our ties. And those ties won't span merely from Main Street to the Academy Fields, but from one end of the world to the other. Make no mistake, what we have created here is permanent. Long after the pandemic is over and we are each onto our next big challenge, those friendships and bonds will remain. This crisis has given us clarity about what and who really matters. Our time at Exeter has concluded, but we're taking away countless parting gifts. The ability to make wise choices, the resilience to remain strong and steadfast, even in the midst of chaos, and of course, our enduring closeness. We are deeply fortunate to have been able to create a home worth missing so much. So fellow graduates of the class of 2020, call home once in a while. No matter how much time has elapsed, we'll want to hear from each other, and we will always answer. And no matter how many miles we wander from the campus on which we grew and learned, smiled and cried and lived and loved, we will still be Exonians, always.